this video, we'll talk about events and event sources in Godspeed, how we use this abstraction. We'll also look at schema-driven development as a concept where we have a standardized, unified event schema across all event sources. And that unified schema provides a standardized and unified way of setting up your authentication, authorization, validations, and other things like generation of Swagger spec, Postman collection, GraphQL schema from a single way of defining your events from different event sources, which could come from different mechanisms like REST API, gRPC, GraphQL, or message bus, WebSocket, etc. One way of defining events and one simple way of integrating any event source into your application. So events may come into your application through any external or internal sources within your system. It could be a mobile app, a web app, a microservice, another application accessing your API, so on and so forth. Your API could be invoked from anywhere, internal or external, or as well, your message bus event could come from any kind of a message bus. So configuring all of these event sources in Godspeed, as we saw in getting started video, is through Godspeed plugin add command, which will install different plugins of event sources. This project has Express, GraphQL, Kafka event sources set up in it, for example, and Salesforce. Here is the configuration of every event source. Here is http.yaml. This is a name of an event source. Name could be any name. HTTP event source is of type Express. You can just change it to use type Fastify, and GraphQL is also same Apollo GraphQL. Rest everything else is same across all of these event sources, most of it at least. And authentication here, these current implementations support authn with JWT. They support authorization where you write TypeScript code or YAML workflows to basically sub, set up your custom authorization strategies. You could query an API, get policies. You could apply a very complex RBAC and ABAC authorizations, which is decoupled from your event source itself. It's pure JavaScript. And one of the principles we follow here is a decoupled architecture, a guardrail, along with schema-driven development, where most of your code is decoupled from where the events is coming from and where the response is going. Similarly, validation of your input and output based on your Swagger schema is done automatically. And when you set up HTTP event source, here's the information of Swagger. And all your events in Godspeed, you define in a standard format like this. Only the first line changes as per the event source, like HTTP type REST events, Fastify, Express, and even GraphQL support this way. You give the type of HTTP method, you give the endpoint, you give the name of the event source. And then all of these things like authentication you can disable because we set up global event source level authentication, but you want to disable it on an endpoint, you say auth and false. If you want to change the authorization for an endpoint, you can write your custom authorization logic in TypeScript or again in YAML workflows of Godspeed. Here is the JSON Swagger spec, the JSON schema of the body, that when we call this HTTP REST API, this is the body that my request will have. This is the response that I will give against the Swagger spec, against different status codes. And this is related to logging. All your logs will basically have these attributes set when you call the API. So once you do this, now Godspeed will automatically generate your Swagger spec. It will be up here, okay? And all your definitions as well, user, loan application, everything has come. This is all events that you generate and keep in this folder. The same folders will reflect and you will see things in the Swagger. Same event definition also generates your GraphQL schema. All of these events you saw on Swagger also run directly on Apollo GraphQL based on GraphQL schema also. And when you have a CRUD API, you can simply use a command line with, let's say, a data source, a Prisma data source plugin that you will need to install. And once you've installed that, you can generate your CRUD API from your Prisma file. All of these events will be generated for you in the events folder, and your API will be up in no time. So this is how this works in Godspeed. As we saw, there is one standard configure over code way of setting up your event sources, where you're configuring your event sources. If you want to customize event source implementation, you can go and change this file's code. Okay, all of this code is available in GS plugins project. You can go to Express plugin, for example, and this file's code is here. You can, this is, I'm simply setting up an Express server here, as you see. You can set up any kind of middleware here using OAuth2, JWT, cookie handling, whatever you want to do for authentication. And then you also need one way to attach your event handler. Okay. Now, event handler is simply a function which is invoked when your event is called, and it is fn colon. So here we are calling dbsync.kafka to db. Let us go to functions, dbsync Kafka to DB. Okay, this is a YAML workflow that we have written here in this use case. Godspeed also allows you to write TypeScript functions purely. So here, if we go to health check as an endpoint of this event health check calls the function health check underscore ts. So this is the function health check underscore ts. Here you get input, all your data of the REST API. Whenever you write a TypeScript function, the beauty of decoupled code is you're writing a pure function for that event handler. It doesn't, it, you just get an inputs object. The inputs has everything, headers, body, params, query. It is deserialized by you by the plugin of the event source that we have created, and you can customize, you get the logger. This is outputs from all functions which previously ran. All the data sources in the project, whether API or databases, are loaded here in this. All their clients are available to you. All the other functions of the project are available here. Of course, you can require as well. Nobody stops you, but they are also available here. And this is configurations and mappings of your project are also available. So with that, you can do any kind of computation and simply return your data of the response, your code, and your headers. That's it. This is pure function out here, decoupled with the event source code. It will work with Fastify, Express, GraphQL everywhere. And that is why the same code you see apply for loan here, and you will see apply for loan here also. This is same schema driven development generated. Both REST, Express, Fastify, and GraphQL Apollo servers are running via schema definition, and they are running the same handler out here. And as well, your authentication authorization has the same code as we saw in the event source setup out here, your authn and authz. So this is how, in short, you play with event sources, how you do authentication, authorization, validations, and how you even set up basic configurations of your event sources. So thank you for watching this. There's a detailed video of event sources and events. If you want to go into the depth of things, go ahead and run it yourself. Thank you very much for tuning in, and check out our documentation. Our blog on schema driven development is a very good blog for you to understand the benefit of schema driven development. And as well, if you have any queries, feel free to join us on our Discord. Thank you so much. Have a lovely, wonderful day.